Hey folks, welcome back to the city. In today's video, voila, some new modular additions are in place. I'm going to show you those in detail, and later on I've got a wee bit more going on in the harbour, a plane and some boats. But what have I spent so far? Well, this week a few £100 are being added, with a total now of £2,440 and 27 pence. And my brick count is 46,736. I'll cover those expenses at the end if you're interested. Anyways, back to the buildings. MJ here is standing outside, of course, a heavily modified version of Al's barbershop from the detective's office Modular. It's now 4 stories, it's 10 studs wide, and it's got an adjoining 6 stud wide newsagent which uses parts of the green building from the Modular police station. And although it's only 4 stories, it's now the tallest building in the city. So let's take a closer look. For this area, I'm going for that really traditional Dutch looking style, very narrow and tall buildings with ornate rooftops. The green building uses parts from the original roofing, but for the fish door I made a very unique ornate facade in grey bricks. I did keep the original dark grey rooftop from the old building, which is sort of capped here, makes it flat, but I've incorporated that with something a bit more fancy on top and much taller, and this is the only bit that comes off, and inside there's no interior, it's just a floor. I quite like this bit on top. I put a dark grey pulley, which is supposed to represent the little crane-like pulleys that feature on many Dutch buildings, where you'd lift things up into hatches or through windows rather than up the stairs. I didn't put much else behind here, I just tiled it off and built a chimney, but I do like it, also it gives it more height. The original building on this bit at the front had a pair of black lamps, but I wanted to give it more external features, so I did 6 red light fixtures instead, and the red really pops and it fits with the colour scheme. Around the back, it's simple enough. I luckily had a bunch of light blue window pieces, but I pretty much exhausted my collection of that shade of blue bricks. It looks nice though, as does the green building I think. I added some plants on the windowsills to jazz it up a bit, but it's relatively simple. Done a bit of research online as always to see what other folk have done so I don't copy anyone, and I've seen enlarged versions like this, wider and taller, but they all look more American, very cool, but it's not what I'm going for in my look, so I'm confident I've made something unique, the Dutch style of course, which is what I'm trying to achieve. Now, the green newsagent, it's really just a shell or a facade where I've left this totally open, the sides unfinished with an exposed structure. As you will never see this, I will always have it against the blue building, so it's a waste of bricks to fill it in. On the other side, I plan on having a jewellery store next to it, which will be shorter, so I filled in the top floors because you'll see that, but the rest of course is also open. I'll switch it around. So this is one solid structure. There's no jumper plates to remove the floors, and of course no interior. I did my own design for the windowsills and used those curved 1x4 bricks, which looks quite nice. Then at the back, some wee details around the windows with some plants. So it's simple, but it's a nice contrast with sand green, which is probably in my top favourite 3 colours in Lego, so I've got a lot of those bricks actually. The original rooftop was kind of flat with sort of sloped edges, but I've given it some more architectural features using other black slopes. And although I don't put interiors in the floors, I have given ground floors all an interior, and this is a really wee tiny interior. I've got some cans of juice, but the main feature is a variety of newspapers at the front of course. Around the back, I wanted to give it a bit of height and add a short staircase, and the front does the same inside. And I put an old-fashioned looking clock piece above the newsstand sign, which is from a city fire set from about 5 years ago. It's too dark from above to see into it very well, but I'll show you that later on. Anyways, look at this ugly thing. Oh gosh, it looks terrible from here. But again, you'll never see this as it's always going to be flanked by buildings either side, and Sanctum Sanctorum is going to be on the right side, so it's just the top that needs to be done. It's also one solid piece, it's very sturdy, and it doesn't come apart except the rooftop. So let's put that down. So this bit at the back comes away to get access into the interior, and it is a tiny interior but lots of detail. And you know, the original Barbour shop was also very small, and I think folk forget that LEGO modular interiors are very small, very sparse. We don't really need to go all out ourselves either, making huge interior spaces, so I'm keeping it limited really. But I will always tile the floors and all the ground floors and make it presentable. And you know, thinking back, I think this was the third modular I'd ever bought, and my favourite bit was the pool table and the actual detective's office. It was a really great set, and for years I had ideas about expanding it, but I couldn't settle on what to make it, especially the owls bit, as I wanted to use the sign in some way. And it's very clever how they did it. It's clips and plates and all sorts of interesting techniques. So whatever I was going to do, it was going to be really a maximum of 4 letters wide, as the space for the sign is quite tight, and I always intended to have a fish store near the water in the city, and the red and white awning kind of reminded me of a fishmonger's where we live, so I thought let's do a Dutch style facade on top, make it tall like a wee skyscraper, as it's so tall anyway, and I know I love it, it looks really good. But oh man, it actually took me 2 hours just to build a sign. It took so many attempts to get the H to fit on, but in the end, quite happy with the result. Although I realised after I built it that in Dutch, the word for fish is vis, which is V-I-S, but hey, it's in English instead. Okay, whatever. So here is the sign, and you can see I worked around the S as it's spelled the same way as above, and just kind of figured out either side what to do. Lots of trial and error, of course, as I said. The interior is a bit more illuminated here, and you can see the fish on display in the front. I used a car windscreen for that, kind of going the other way, and I made the doorway just 3 studs wide to fit the base plate, so there's no door in there actually. And there's a fishmonger in there at the back, with a lobster crate, and there's some fish pictures on the wall. I've got 2 fish and a scallop shell as decoration outside. It's straightforward enough to put back together. There are jumper plates and tiles on the ground floor. That does kind of create a bit of a gap between the buildings, but this won't matter as they'll be sandwiched together either side eventually. I also made a wee ice cart for the fish to be delivered to customers in the city. When I get the rest of the street done, I'll put figures on the pavements and I'll have a delivery boy riding this off somewhere. Now I have taken this section away to get fully tiled and build a jetty for a seaplane. And this is going to become my seaplane. It is a mock I did of the recent Jurassic World aircraft. I modified this set to build this, which is a longer and more detailed version. It's based on a Fairchild C119 or a C82. I really like the design, especially the tail, but I want to use a part from a jungle set the boys got years ago. It was a jungle set 60161, and it had a crashed white nose of an aircraft which had an engine built in, and I think it's really cool. I always wanted to make it into a larger plane, so I'm going to make a single engine seaplane using this, and I'll swap out the 2 propellers for landing struts or pontoons, whatever you call them. And my new plane will be a passenger plane. It'll be white and blue, based on old 1940s or 50s style Pan Am livery. As my main airline in the city, it's going to be Pan Am, but I also have a KLM aircraft as well, as it's Dutch, but that's for another day. So that's the plan, and this will be the last time this plane looks like this. I have also finished this section of the canal, except the bridge will be different, but yeah, the water is all done, plants, a few boats, fence pieces. It's looking really nice and finished. I've also added 2 new mocks of the boats and some new figures, but I think the video is a bit long already this week, so I'll go into more detail of them next week, and I'll also have finished my plane. Now, costs. I have added a load of bricks to the modulars and more stuff to the harbour area. I've also added the parts used for the modifications to the boats, as I did build them this week, but I haven't really shown them, of course, but I'm going to add them this week anyway. I've also added the jungle sets, as I'm using the yellow bricks for the vehicles in a building, and all the plants are being used in the city for the gardens at the back of the houses, which I'm working on for next week, or maybe finish the following week. But yeah, it's a bit of a jump in cost, so yeah, £2,440. And parts, I've counted the parts for the modulars and also added stuff for the vehicles, so it's pretty accurate. I've got a count here as well of the number of things in this city so far. There's 1 animal, 3 figures, 3 cars, 4 boats and 1 plane. But soon I will do a more accurate count, as some of the modulars have figures in them too. Anyways, I hope that wasn't a boring bit at the end of the video. Thanks for watching until the end if you did, and I'll catch you next week, folks, for the reveal of the plane and a few other things. Bye!